Hello my lovelies and welcome to this special Valentine's episode of the Mother Gaia Birthy Pod. Today I'm joined once again by the brilliant Nicole Holden, but this time she's brought along her partner Grant for a deep dive into birth, relationships and the journey of supporting your partner through pregnancy and beyond. Together Nicole and Grant share the inspiration behind the Dude Doula app, how it came to life and why birth education for dads and partners is so crucial, and how they've navigated their own relationship through the highs and lows of parenthood. We talk about birth from the dad's perspective, the importance of showing up even when you don't have all the answers, and a refreshing reminder that you don't need to be in a perfect relationship to have a wonderful one. So whether you're expecting a baby, supporting a partner, or just love a good honest chat about love and birth, this episode's for you. Grab a cuppa and get comfy.
So that's Nicole Holden, my wife.
You want to say anything nice about me? No, I'm just kidding.
I like to say, well,
I'm kidding.
No, I'll say it. She's the chief vision officer of our home and our companies.
That's nice. And this is my husband, Grant Holden, of whom I got my name from. And he's our chief execution officer. I give him the idea and he goes, okay, I'm going to do it.
I like it. I mean, that leads us really well into the first thing that I was going to say, because you did kind of say when we talked last time that the whole idea of the Dude Doula app kind of came from you going, right, now sit down and do as you're told. I need you to do this, and this. Now, crack on. So do you want to kind of expand on that and tell us a bit more in detail about how that's kind of worked within the app?
Yeah. Yes. First of all, spot on analysis. 100% you nailed me. I think once when we were talking to somebody about the app, she goes, oh, so is this like for like type A people? And I was like, oh, maybe.
She said, oh no, am I that?
Yeah, I said, oh no. I think I might be.
No, we have a really good dynamic where she has really great ideas and I'm really good at just making things happen for the most part, especially when it comes to technology. So she came to me with a slew of Google Docs and super long pages of reading material, and I'm pretty lazy, so I was like, I'm not doing that. She wanted me to review all this so that way I knew what to do while she was in labor. And that was just not going to work for somebody like me. So I decided I was going to make a solution to make it easier for me, which basically involved like making shortcuts on my phone and my watch. That way my watch was alerted to tell me like what to do during labor. So that's where the Dude Doula came from. It wasn't really even like, we never really had an idea to make an app or do anything like that. It was really just born out of necessity for me because I felt like I was not going to during labor open up a Google Doc and read that. I wanted to know what I needed to do at the moment I needed to do it. So yeah.
I mean, I have actually used it during a birth. So I know, right? I was at a birth as a doula at the beginning of January, and I mean, to be fair, I hadn't really programmed much into it. I just thought at the early stages of this particular labour, and I thought I'm going to just try it out and see what there is and what's in there and what have you. And obviously, because I hadn't looked around it to start off with, I hadn't really programmed anything into it. And there is a lot of stuff that you can put in there if you choose to. But the fact that I could just open it and go, right, time these contractions, remind me to tell it I have a drink and remind me to tell it to go to the toilet. And it just kind of did its thing. And it didn't take much of anything at all to just go, do this, do that. Yeah. So is that kind of what you were aiming for, is to be able to open it and pretty much use it straight away?
Yeah, the idea is like, even if you go to training, even if you go to classes, in the moment you're probably going to be just only focused on her, right? So the idea was like, you don't need to remember any of that stuff, just follow the directions and it tells you exactly what to do. Yeah.
I think too, if I could add something on like kind of what I said, where I kind of handed him like the roadmap where I'm like, here, do this. And I don't know, maybe if there are other couples out there that are similar to us, but like it happens a lot with us where I'm like, this is what I want. And then he goes and does it. But when I went into labor, if everything is progressing as it should, I got really quiet. And I'm no longer saying, hey, this is what I need. This is what I need. And so he just kind of, I felt really needed backup. He needed somebody else to say that so that I could get to the point where I needed to get to, which was like, I really need to concentrate and go inside myself. And he then needed like backup of like, oh yeah, this is the reminder. Because when you get excited or you get scared sometimes, or even just tired because labor is really long.
Yeah.
Sometimes all of that logic that you're supposed to remember, especially as a dad, goes out the window because you haven't practiced it. You haven't done it in your everyday life. And so it's really normal for a dad to be like, what am I supposed to do again? And it's just nice to have some of those reminders. That's just like a little backup.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I noticed as well things like from both a birthing point of view and from being sort of like a doula and being at a birth, it's really difficult to keep on top of like what time it is or how long something in particular is taken and what have you. And you don't realize, even as just as like I said, as a doula, I've gone 3 hours and I haven't had a drink yet. Like, you know, and I'm not even doing that much work. You know? So it's quite good to have something that is continuously reminding you, even if you don't necessarily have to do that thing in that moment. It's nice to be kind of reminded. The other thing that I wanted to ask you about, because I'm going to sort of veer off slightly out of the app, because obviously this is a Valentine special, it's not just about the app. I actually wanted kind of to get your view of birth as a dad. And kind of what you felt in that moment, and like what was your experience of it?
Well, so we've had 2 births or 2 children, and each birth was vastly different. The one that Dude Doula was born from, that one was really great. I would say that because I had it, it was really helpful as like a confidence thing. Like I was a lot more confident in what I was doing because I had like a little bit of guidance. But the first time around, didn't really have any of that guidance, so I was pretty scared. And I was still scared the second time around because it's her and I care, and like it's like, you know, birth is scary, or it can be anyway. I'm not saying it's not always scary, but it can be. But overall, how I felt the first time was like, I have no idea what I'm doing and what am I getting myself into, and I'm super scared. And then the second time was like, I've done this before, yes, but also this is still scary, but also I'm a lot more confident now because something else is telling me what to do. And I can just like do that thing. And at least I'm kind of like, the main thing that I felt was like, at least I'm taking action. At least I'm doing something. It doesn't mean it was like huge or anything, but
what do you think was the thing that you got like that caused you to be afraid? Because I do think like we weren't prepared for you to feel afraid. Like that was a weird, was it like that I was in, like you saw that I was in pain and you weren't sure what to do? Like, well, so what was that?
I think like, I mean, I don't want to speak for all men, but I feel very protective over her. So when I felt like I couldn't do anything to help her or anything to protect her, that's when I got scared. I was like, this is completely out of my control. And like, yes, even when I was doing stuff, it was still out of my control, but like I still felt like I was applying some sort of like protection or control over it, and that felt better. So
that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, obviously I've spoke to my partner after our births and things like that, and I've had 3 very different births in each scenario. It's never the same thing twice. And it is that normally obviously very stereotypical of a heterosexual like partnership, but it does always feel like the man's the protector and he does all the swoops in and helps out and does this and does that and is always knocking up wardrobes and things like that. But then when it comes to something that's intrinsically female and very, very powerful, and you're kind of on the outside looking in, if you've got no support, you've had no education, you've never been in that situation before, you don't know what you're looking at, it can be quite scary because you're just like, I want to save this woman, but how?
Yeah.
Well, and two, did you also feel like in normal everyday life, all of those signs would have pointed to like something was very wrong with me? Like if I would have been vocalizing in that way or kind of like yelling or moving in that way, I think that probably may have triggered like a stress response in you, because on an average like Tuesday, you would have been like, I need to help. Like something is very wrong. We need to call a doctor. And in that scenario, I think that was the first time that you had ever seen me like that. And you were supposed to like, in a way, not do anything. Like let me go.
Yeah, it's like if you have like they say if you want to be an expert at something, you have to spend like years being an expert at something. And like even if regardless of who you are, if you're seeing somebody go through that, like you're not necessarily an expert unless you're a doula or a midwife who's seen hundreds of births. Then sure, but like if you've only seen one or two, it's kind of like you're not an expert yet. You have no idea what's happening, right? Yeah. Every moment is a new experience. So there's definitely like a scarcity mindset there, or like a being scared mindset, I would say.
Yeah. And also it's kind of weird that at least for our first birth that we went to a hospital, which for both of us, we had pretty strong associations of like, you go there when you're sick or you go there when you're like, not to be morbid, but when you need to be saved. And we both had really strong associations with that, I would say. So when we were in the hospital, it was kind of, everything felt really magnified, that like if they would come in and they would offer like even something that was like cautionary of like, hey, we're just giving you this piece of data, baby's heart rate is looking like this. And that just kind of felt threatening in a way, a little bit, versus like birth is, I think, the opposite of that. It's life. But it's sometimes in a hospital setting, if you have a preconceived notion about why you're going to the hospital, that also can kind of mess with you. And I definitely think that messed with both of us a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know for my partner, 2 of my births started off at home and we transferred in, but both of those times I was on the back of an ambulance and he was in a car behind the ambulance. So that in and of itself is normally panic stations. Somebody's in an ambulance, really scary. So it didn't really put him in a very good position to get into that to there, even though there wasn't anything tragic or horrendous happening. It just happened that we needed to go in for whatever reason. So you do have those preconceived notions, and sometimes it's fight or flight response. It's not even something you've got control over.
Yes, even just seeing the lights or hearing the sirens, like there's like a response there with that where you're like, okay, you hit the nail on the head, fight or flight. You're like, okay.
Absolutely. So obviously the second birth where Dude Doula was created, where it first started its little life, alongside obviously baby being born as well. Was there a moment where you kind of went, do you know what, other people need this? Like, because obviously you've created this for yourself. What was that moment like for you? What went through your head?
So it's pertinent to say that like I'm really interested in like data, and I research when it comes to like technology and stuff. And after the birth was over and our child was born, I was like, well, first of all, they said, the midwives that were there, they said, well, you should do this full time. Like you did so great, right? And I was like, maybe I'll think about that. But I was like, I just wonder, it actually happened before our second child was born. We had I would say a negative experience our first birth. And I was like, I wonder how many other people have this trouble or have this type of experience. And what I found was like, it's more than a couple, right? It's almost half of all births have some sort of negative experience. And I was like, that's crazy to me. So I was like, what can I do? But then right at that time, she was bringing me all the information. So I was like, oh, I know what to do now, right? And then afterwards, after our second child was born, I was like, I wonder what I can do to help other people. Like, I know I got lucky because, or we got lucky because we had friends who were about to give birth or have a new baby. And I was like, if this worked for me, maybe it'll work for them. They're similar to my mindset, stuff like that. So I gave it to them and I was like, hey, try this out and see what you think. And they were all like, oh yeah, this is great. And then I did even more research and I was like, I think that this could be something that most people could benefit from if it's presented in the right way.
Yeah.
So I was like, at that point, I was kind of like, logically, it makes sense to at least try to get it out there, because if I can, or if we can help people have even like a 10% better birthing experience, why not do that, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, absolutely. So obviously, like, it's been a little while since I last talked to your wife about when it came out and when I looked at it. And obviously, there'd been a little bit of an update when I used it at the beginning of January. I think I quickly had a little scan over it just to see what was different. And I've seen that there's been another update recently as well. So because I haven't really looked at it properly with that update, kind of what have you put on that extra? Because I know, just as an overview, to start off with, the ones that I saw and I thought were really good was obviously there's a bag packing list. So all the things that you need to make sure that are in the bag, whether that be a home birth bag or a hospital bag or whatever it is that you need. A reminder to take that, which is really good. Obviously, you've got the contraction timer on there, and the reminders for like having something to like to drink or something to eat and things like that. So what else have you kind of added to that?
Yeah, so a lot of the updates lately have been enhancement or making sure that things operate properly, fixing bugs. Like one of the main things we worked on was making sure that timing was working really well, because it's not a perfect science telling somebody when they should be doing something, right?
Yeah.
So we were like working on the algorithm there, because it is an algorithm. It tries to determine when it should alert you of doing these things, right? And then like a lot of it was just like content related, making sure that what we were saying aligned medically, scientifically, emotionally, like with people, and made sure that we were giving the proper data. But the most significant, I would say, update that we did very recently was putting in an option for monetization. So for a while, we were like, obviously, we want to try to help as many people as possible, but we need to support the app's development somehow. And we tried a bunch of different stuff. And what we essentially came up with was like, we want it to benefit people no matter what. So right now, we're like, it's free. Use it. There's no ads. There's no anything like that. And we set it up that way, so that way you wouldn't be bothered by using it. And then at the very end, after you've gone through labor and after you've completed labor, then it asks you, do you want to do that? Like, do you want to help contribute to this? And it's completely optional still. But we put that in because we were like, we want people to have an opportunity to contribute towards making this app better for the people that come after them, right?
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
Those are the big ones. Like the main thing that we were always concerned about is how useful can it actually be? Yeah. And we have plans to make it even more useful, but I would say past 3 months or so, I've just been making sure it runs really, really, really well and doesn't fail you, essentially.
Yeah. Brilliant. I mean, you've kind of just about hit on my next question, which is, what are your plans for the future?
I'll let her take that one.
Okay. So the idea for the future is to build out a postpartum part of the app, which is really similar, which is sort of like, again, postpartum for dads, of like what she's going through and like what you can do. Really simple things like every guy or every partner, no matter who you are, you should be making sure that she's got a kick-ass meal after labor. Like get whatever she wants, like make it happen. And so we want to add features in like that where we're like reminding you and then
I
also
mean, from my point of view, dry cold toast with stale butter on it is not a meal.
right. Yes, somebody needed to say it.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Well, and it's so funny because like all of the women that you like that I've spoken to that have these amazing labor stories at the very end, they're always like, and then guess what I had? And they're like, I had this amazing glass of orange juice or this amazing like bowl of soup or whatever it was that they wanted. And every woman remembers that. They do. So it's a big deal.
Carry on.
Something else that we're, I think, starting to rummage through is like, how can we, you had mentioned it, you said you used it as like in a doula setting. Like we're starting to think about how we can actually make this more beneficial for doulas to use, because there's a lot of doulas out there that, like you said, like a reminder is a reminder. And if you're in the thick of it, like that's still beneficial to you, right? So we're starting to think about things that we can do to help out the birthing community in general, so that way they can use it. It's not just beneficial for the birthing partner, it's beneficial for everybody who's part of this process.
Yeah.
So
I mean, tell me if you've already thought of this, just something that kind of came up because of the like things like timing and being reminded and then going into like postpartum sort of thing. For those who are, say, breastfeeding, timing breastfeeding, because obviously you don't know how much you're actually feeding baby. And do you know what? I could never remember whether I was left or right. I was like, which side are you on now? You know?
We had a chart from the hospital, and we like you were like religious about that chart.
I was.
You were like, and I was like, shut up, it's 2:00 in the morning. Like, I don't care whether it's right or left. And he would be like writing it down. Yep. I remember that. And that was so important when we were new parents.
Yeah.
Versus the second time, I was like, pop them on any side.
Yeah, it doesn't matter that. Yeah.
No, yeah,
that's so good.
We hadn't thought of that, but we had thought of things similar. That's a good call out, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff that we've been thinking about is like, how do we enhance experiences? So that's a really good call out.
Yeah.
We were actually looking at an idea, and this is like not quite official. We're still thinking about it, but a companion platform to allow the birthing professionals to assist. So like something that we thought about was like, if you were a doula or if you were a midwife, you could use a platform that would give you the information from the Dude Doula app. And then from Dude Doula, if you were like the birthing woman or the partner to the woman, you could actually request support from these people inside the app. So it would allow people to like communicate, even if they weren't there, like remotely, like, over the internet, all that stuff, like telehealth, all that stuff. So
it's so funny that you bring that up, because the last time that we talked way a lot about like birth preferences and how important that is. And that would be such a good place to store something like that.
Yeah.
So
I mean, not that I'm like, I know there's lots of places that have lots of information and things like that. I mean, you talk to any specialist, they'll have a bank of information, or if you at different places and things like that, I've got all sorts of stuff. I do know there's someone who offers a thing called Doula in your pocket, whereby you can message them at any time of day or night, and you kind of get like almost like an AI answer to most often asked questions and things like that. So if you've got like a bank of information from midwives, doulas, this, that, and the other, where you could just ask a question and get, this blog has this, and if you still need more help, then you can contact somebody else. Something along those lines, where it's like a nice little library of information, really. But I wouldn't know how much information you'd need or how long that would take. You could probably be there for the rest of your life filling on this.
Well, some of it's already in the app, which is nice, but the idea is like having it accessible in real time from real people.
Yeah, definitely.
But also for dads too, at this point in time, I don't want to overload them either. Yeah. And I also don't want to have them like stepping on a doula's toes or stepping on a medical professional's toes. Like, I think that dads can end up being really complimentary to the process, but I don't think they have to be like overly medical either.
Yeah.
I think that there is a huge need if you can afford it. I don't know how it is in the UK. At least in the United States, insurance usually doesn't cover a doula. So it's not as popular here because a lot of people. How is it for you guys?
We don't have insurances that cover stuff like that anyway, and obviously our National Health Service is a free service. So technically, if you were getting midwifery care, it's all free on the National Health Service. But then it's a blanket, one size fits all. It's not kind of, you are a human being, you're an individual, here is your tailored package of care. It's this is our standard for maternity, and it's got to fit you or it doesn't, kind of thing. So yeah, it's quite difficult because obviously we need paying at the end of the day, but it's only for people who can afford it. So like yourselves, I offer freebies and things like that, so I can still help people. But again, I'm still self-employed. I still need to make money. There's a fine line between. I mean, if I had all the money in the world, I'd probably still do this job, but I'd do it all for free.
Right.
But
exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Similar situation that we are too. Because that's what I said. I'm like, everyone should have a doula. Like, it's a good thing. It's a wonderful thing to have happen. Like, whether you have the best medical team in the world or not, but it's definitely an expense that people have to consider.
I mean, it's so complementary as well, like you said, that everybody's kind of got their role and they have that different thing. And you've kind of got there like that separate thing. So you've got the woman who's actually giving birth, who needs that support around them. You've then got their partner, whether that be husband, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever that happens to be, their partner. But for me, that's more emotional and invested, and I'm here to hold your hand. And whilst yes, I can bring you water, bring you food, this, that, and the other, it is definitely your safety support, I feel, is your partner. Then you've got the doula, who has some medical knowledge but isn't a medical professional, but is there for the support of both the partner and the woman. Absolutely. And when things are going a bit wrong or they're not quite going the way that you want them to, is there as an extra person to go, look, this person doesn't want this to happen, or is there an alternative to the sort of logical person? And then you've got your midwives and your doctors and what have you, who have got the medical stuff, so that when shit hits the fan, they can do their job.
Exactly.
And I think there's a piece for everybody. And nobody needs to be standing on each other's toes, because there's a different bit of support that everybody brings to the table.
Yeah. And well, on top of that, I think it doesn't work unless you have all of them, like if you're missing one of those pieces, like it doesn't have to be all those different people, but if all those roles aren't filled, I think like that's where problems start to happen.
Do you think the roles bring balance? Like, I think that sometimes having, like, at least in our first birth, I felt like our birth was like heavily like medicalized, and I felt like we were kind of missing a little bit like of the balance, because I kind of view a doula as almost like the go-between between the couple and the medical system. They're like going to translate it for you, and they might be a little bit of the barrier. And I think that having everybody and be in those and really secure in those roles, it just gives the whole experience like balance.
I mean, for me personally, there was one moment in the last birth that I was at where it just felt like the midwives who'd come in to offer this particular induction technique, they were just like, oh, this and this is what we're going to do. So if you just want to open your legs up and we'll do X, Y, and Z. And there was no kind of like process in between. I stepped in and went, can we just have 5 minutes so that they can process that information and make a decision on whether they want to do that or not? And the midwife kind of just went, oh, well, yeah, absolutely. And I think she just got so stuck in, this is my role, this is how I do my job, I'm just going to carry on doing it. It was like going to the toilet for her. It was just another step in the process. Whereas obviously for the clients that I had, they were like, whoa, what is that? What are you talking about? What are the benefits? What are the negatives? What's going on? Brr, kind of thing. But almost felt like they didn't have a voice to say no, stop. So having someone in between to just go, can we just have 5 minutes just to chat this through, kind of thing? And it became very obvious that that was something that was needed. So brilliant.
That's so beautiful. And like, it's just, and that couple was so lucky to have that, because otherwise sometimes you just get swept up. Like
I mean, in the end, that this particular thing that they'd offered, the client said, "Well, yeah, okay, let's do that." And that's fine, but if she felt like she'd been not had that time to digest what had been said to her, I think she might have said afterwards, like, "Oh, well, I didn't get what I wanted, and no one was listening." Whereas a couple of minutes isn't going to make that, unless it's like an emergency situation. But a couple of minutes isn't going to make that much of a difference when you're making a decision.
Well, and it made a big difference in the outcome too, though, or it could have made a big difference in the outcome by taking that time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Time to process it, because it's all new and it's all happening so fast.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's maybe an interesting tidbit is like some doulas were like, "Why did you call it Dude Doula if you're not, if you are like, are you trying to eliminate doulas?" And we're like, no, it's just like that's the closest thing that we could think of as a support system for the guy to do. So, but yeah,
I mean, it gives you the obvious. It's like, dude, it's got guys, we can get that in the doula process. I mean, I think it's quite a nice name. It says what it does on the tin.
I always tell people we very fervently still believe that doulas are a necessary part of the birthing process.
We love doulas.
Yeah.
Some of our favorite people.
Yeah, but like you said, not everybody can afford them, or not everybody has access to them and things like that. So having something else, whether you've got a doula there or not, as the partner, you do sometimes need that support. I mean, even if you do have a doula, well, what happens if you get stuck in traffic or something happens? Or, do you know what I mean? At least you've got some other form of support there.
Yep.
It's so funny that you say that, because I had a friend who she was like, "I'm just gonna get a C-section." And I was like, "Cool, great," but I was like, "Do you know what you'll do just in case you go into labor before you have your C-section? Like, just in case, is he prepared? Are you prepared?" It's just nice to, like, I don't know, have all your bases covered, I guess, and make sure that all the people around you will not be freaking out. They'll be like calm.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even when like the one of the other births that I've been at the beginning of the year, I thought, right, well, we know what we're doing, we know where we're going, blah, 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 blah. She wanted to go to hospital. Oh, no problem. Gets there overnight. We had a massive storm. So when I got out the next morning, we were 2 foot in snow. And we don't have that kind of weather here. And I was like,
no.
How do I get home? I just wanted to go home.
Change of plans.
Yeah.
That's what we're gonna do here. What did you do? How did you get home?
Thankfully, it was really fluffy stuff, so I just scraped it all off the car. Managed to kind of go up 5 miles an hour until I got to the motorway, and then it was fine.
Oh, that's also the worst, where you're probably just like, I need my bed.
Yeah, I've been awake for 2 days. I want to go home. Brilliant. And I think we're going to wrap that up there. I've just got one little thing that's going to surprise both of you, and it might put you right on the spot. Because it's Valentine's Day this week, and this is the special, have you got anything that you want to say to each other as a Valentine's?
Oh,
sure.
Should we be really?
So I'll be upfront and say that before this meeting, we were in a little bit of a tip, believe it or not. And before the meeting started, I said, we need to talk because we have to go into this podcast, like making sure that we're good with each other. Right. And
I'm like, hey, actually, we were late. It's my bad. Can we get in here right now? And he was like,
So maybe for you, but also for everybody, it's like, nobody's perfect, right? And we do this together, but we do it together understanding that we've gone through everything together, and good or bad. And just thank you for being with me.
Oh,
that's it.
Okay, well, I'll take it a step further.
Yeah, she's gonna get some me.
I love you, and I support you in everything that you do. And I'm sorry that sometimes I don't always understand exactly what it is that you need and when you need it. Or if I'm too harsh on you, but thanks for being on my team. Wouldn't have anybody else. Love ya.
Oh, that's so cute.
Fight's over.
Yay. I'm now a marriage counsellor as well. Look at me.
I know. Hey, call us back. We don't necessarily believe in couples therapy, but if it works, it works.
Yeah.
Right. Love it. All right, guys. Thank you so much for coming back on and being my special for this week. And that's it for this special Valentine's episode. I absolutely loved this conversation with Nicole and Grant. There's just something so refreshing about their honesty, their teamwork, and the way that they support each other. It's proof that you don't need to have a perfect relationship to have a truly wonderful one. Hearing Grant's perspective on birth and support was such a reminder of how powerful it is when partners step up, learn, and really show up for each other. And the Dude Doula app? What a game changer for dads and birth partners who want to be more involved but don't always know where to start. If you've loved this episode, don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave me a review. It really helps the podcast reach more people who need these conversations. And as always, you can find me over on Instagram at mother_Gaia_Crabtree if you want to chat more. Until next time, my lovelies, sending you all the love always. Many blessings.